to overturn the election incorrect at every turn. The Fed raised its key interest rate by 0.75 points and signaled more rate hikes are coming to fight inflation. Now the worry is about a possible recession. Bankrate.com's Greg McBride. That will increase the risk of either a sharp slowdown or an outright recession. The reality of it is, with inflation at a 40-year high and interest rates that were record low, a recession may be the price we have to pay to get inflation under control. It's miserably hot in the Midwest and Southeast. The National Weather Service says this is record-breaking heat. Heat advisories and warnings are still in effect across parts of the Midwest, the South, and the Southeast. The number of COVID deaths worldwide had been going down, but now the number is up by 4%. That's from the World Health Organization. Oscar-winning actor Kevin Spacey has been in a London courtroom today to face charges of committing sexual offenses against 3 men. In a statement last month, he said he's going to court to prove he's innocent. French President Macron visiting Ukraine says there are signs of war crimes in a Kyiv suburb following massacres, he said, by Russian forces. This is AP News. A prestigious university is making a historic change. The AP's Ed Donahue has said.
George Washington University is dropping its colonial moniker. The school, located not far from the White House, says it can no longer serve its purpose as a name that unifies. George Washington University has used the name colonial since 1926. A special committee looked into the name and determined opponents saw it as referring to colonizers who stole land and resources from killed or exiled people and introduced slavery into the colonies. And supporters of colonial viewed it as referring to those who lived in American colonies, especially those who fought for independence and democracy. GW will keep using colonial until a new name is introduced. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Dolly Parton's giving $1 million to Vanderbilt University Medical Center for children's disease research. The medical center's in Nashville. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
It's 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
In downtown Chicago, DuSable Lakeshore Drive has southbound delays approaching Jackson, where traffic is forced off the drive due to a crash. Northbound, everything is open. Seeing delays on the outbound Eisenhower, St. Charles to Gordon. Collision there just cleared. Trip time is down to 25 minutes. Downtown Chicago to 390. Inbound is 25 minutes as well. Inbound Stevenson has delays. Marvin McKenzie, 35 minutes from the Veterans Memorial to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. The line 14 minutes in from 95th. I-57 has the usual roadwork delays. Reagan to the way eastbound, just past Winfield Road. All right, the pass trip.
Hi, how you doing, Darius? We were tied up all day yesterday. Call Mom today. Oh, can you bring that down, Coach May? I can't hear. Okay, perfect. Thank you, hon. Darius? Call Mom today. We were tied up all day yesterday, and we didn't get out until late last evening. Okay? But if you don't get in touch with her, call me back, and I'll take care of all of this today. We're on Facebook Live, and that's that. Okay? Okay. Just, you know what? Call her. Because and make sure that she has the format that she needs, because she's putting it on the trucks today.
30 seconds.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Go to southwayscience.com. A public service message from the Action Coalition.
All right.
Okay, you can come on up, and you can bring that up.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, June 16th. It's Thursday. It's going to be another muggy day in Chicago, everybody. Whew, 92 degrees will be the high, sunny. Wow, the heat wave all over the country. Please take care of yourselves and make sure you're hydrated. Everybody on my YouTube page, the Santita Jackson Show channel, and Santita Jackson and friends, you see my thermal jar of water because I just needed it cold today. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And of course, my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and Santita Jackson and Friends, my Facebook page. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call me. Call me. We're going to do some more of these hearings tonight, the January 6th hearings. Well, you can watch the recaps tonight, but of course that takes place at midday today here in, out of Washington and all over the country, if not the world. We need to know what happened. Who led these rioters into the Capitol a couple of days before? Remember, this is the pandemic. People were not going to Capitol Hill. It was closed. It was closed. And yet these rioters were taken on a tour by Congressman Loudermilk. He did not tell the truth when initially approached by this. And we just need to get down to it, don't you think? I mean, wherever you are politically, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you've got to stand up for the Republic and the democracy, right? So call me, let me know what you think about that. 773-763-9278. Got a lot to talk about today. You know, many people almost took it as an article of faith that Raphael Warnock, the senator from the great state of Georgia, would be able to, not have an easy time walking back into office, but they felt that, Herschel Walker was a strong candidate, not very strong. It certainly doesn't have not just the credentials, but he is not known for, he's fast on his feet, but people have questioned whether he thinks quickly on his feet. That's not fair, but, he's not as articulate as Reverend Dr. Warnock. Well, they are tied in the Georgia polls. That is surprising to a lot of people. Let's talk about that today. And then the Republicans are opening community centers in Hispanic neighborhoods and Black neighborhoods and AAPI neighborhoods and Asian American neighborhoods. They're going after people of color. Progressives are calling on the DNC to do the same thing. The DNC thus far has not moved. I mean, the Republicans are actively engaging in trying to recruit Black and brown and Asian voters. What do you think about that? Do you think it's going to work? Certainly the numbers have been going up, certainly with Donald Trump. So we've got to talk about that. What should the Democrats be doing? And then, of course, Dr. Max Wolf will be with us today talking about intergenerational trauma. That's right. Parents' emotional trauma can change their children's biology, and it's passed down through the generations. That has tremendous implications. Think about those of us who are descendants of those who were enslaved, not just in the United States, but everywhere. Think about people who've lived in grinding poverty, generation after generation after generation. Think about somebody who was raped. I mean, there are we pass trauma down. The Bible talks about that the sins of the fathers are passed on to their children. And fathers and mothers. We have to talk about that today. Got a lot to talk about with you, so call me at 773-763-9278. Let's get to some of these headlines. Chicago, a high of 92 degrees, sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 80 degrees, mostly sunny. Oh boy, and of course there was a very active day on the stock market yesterday. I'm going to ask Dr. Wolf about these 401ks and the impact that they have there. In the NBA, the Warriors will be playing the Celtics tonight. Who is going to win? Will the Warriors close it out tonight in Boston? We'll see. The Avalanche will be playing the Lightning on the 18th. Going to have a couple of days off, and they do need it. In Major League Baseball, the White Sox 13. They shut out the Tigers 13-0. The Padres, they kind of returned the favor with the other Chicago team, 19-5 over the Cubs. The Twins shut out the Mariners, and they'll be playing the Diamondbacks later on this evening. Many retailers are facing a major backlash for selling themed projects in an attempt to monetize Juneteenth, the upcoming federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. Well, actually, you know what it really does? Black people in Texas were not told that slavery had ended. So they were lied to by their masters and by the surrounding community. So when they did find out, it was about Juneteenth, and that's how that holiday came about. It wasn't celebrating the end of slavery, it was celebrating really the end of a lie, an untruth. Interest rates, everybody. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates by 3/4 of a percentage point on Wednesday in an aggressive move to tackle inflation. Again, we'll ask Dr. Wolf about that. It's the biggest increase in 28 years and will affect millions of American businesses and households and by pushing up the cost of borrowing for homes, cars, and other loans. Got to find out what all of that's going to mean. In the meantime, U.S. consumers are getting fleeced, according to Democrats. Progressive members of Congress on Wednesday ramped up calls for a windfall profits tax on oil giants after President Joe Biden pleaded directly with Exxon, British Petroleum, Shell, and other companies to boost production instead of just padding their bottom lines. And that comes after this news. They're calling this robbery. Chevron, for example, has quadrupled their profits. Exxon, they doubled their profits amid the Ukraine crisis alone. So they're making money hand over fist. And there should be hearings, I do believe, to justify the raising of all of these prices when they're making record profits, everybody. Dr. Anthony Fauci tested positive for COVID. He is obviously vaxxed. He's been boosted twice, and he, in a statement, has said that he is only experiencing mild symptoms. We're thankful for that. In the meantime, COVID-19 vaccines could be available for children as young as 6 months, as early as next week. Call me, text me, 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. What do you make of the news that 6-month-old children could get vaxxed? What do you think about that, everybody? In the Buffalo shooting, the suspect in the racist mass shooting at the Buffalo supermarket, Peyton Gendron, don't forget his name, everybody. Peyton Gendron, the suspect in the racist mass shooting in which he had planned to kill many more black people. He had been in the store not only a couple of months before, but a couple of hours before he committed that heinous crime. Killed 10 people. He faces multiple federal hate crimes, carrying the potential of the death penalty, according to the U.S. Justice Department. The 18-year-old is accused of shooting 13 people, killing 10. 11 were black, 2 were white. In a move to address the nationwide baby formula shortage, the Biden administration is announcing its plan to ship 44,000 pounds of specialty formula from Switzerland to the U.S. today. Let's get some good news from Pastor Darius Brooks of Grace Central Church in Westchester, Illinois. They're feeding people, and you can go to gracecentral.net so that you can find out when you can get there. A lot of folks are hurting out here, Pastor Darius Brooks, but I'm glad that you're going to be at the Rainbow Push International Conference this weekend with the Tommies and with Vicky Winans and with Donnie McClurkin. It is going to be something fantastic as we, of course, have the Reverend Clay Evans Memorial Concert. Very quickly, how can people come to the concert? When is it? And then we'll have the good news from you.
Well, Sunday will be a fellowship Baptist Church in honor of Reverend Clay Evans, of course, for the Rainbow Push Coalition's convention. We're excited. You all come on out Sunday. Let Reverend Jackson know all of the work he's done is not gone in vain. It's Sunday, June 19th. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. It's going to be an amazing concert. It's essential. At 2 o'clock on Tuesdays from 5 till 7. So the community, we've done a live recording this weekend, Santita, and it was around the block. Cars was around the block. And I said, my wife said, no, we're going to continue to serve. We got a crazy schedule, but this is what we do as believers. So Tuesdays from 5 to 7. Please, you guys, really for real, it's good stuff. $200 to $300 worth of food, and we serve between 200 and 600 families every Tuesday. But Peter, let's journey through the Word of God. I'm excited about direction. Hebrews 4:16 says, let us therefore come boldly before the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace. Watch this, to help in time of need. Santita, if I had to use what I thought this morning, I'd use, it's not what I'm doing, I could use a different approach. It's not what I'm doing, I could use a different approach. Santita, we are surrounded by influences. A lot of our foundational structures came from previous mirrors. And as the Word of God being a mirror, we must approach Him as children of God. Watch this. A child needing direction. It doesn't matter how old we are right now. Before we continue to address Him as if we know Him based on how we've been told He is or was now, especially for a right now perspective. Because that's really what we need. In the changed world, from where we've come from, it ain't going back. Santita, things ain't going back, just FYI. The negatives ain't coming back, and the positives ain't coming back. As we would say, the good old days, they're not coming back. We must be committed to seeking first more of God's word, or a today word, for the big things we deal with today, so that our prayers are properly directed. You cannot pray in the wrong way. The Word of God says, don't pray amiss. Approach means come near or nearer to in distance of time. Typically, watch this, Santita, with a proposal or request. I'm going to get up out of here. Viewpoint, point of view, outlook, method, procedure, technique, process, strategy. And I like this one. Have a system. God's word approach today. You need a system to always use God's word against all odds. So we won't be in situations that will be used. And I got to go, Santita. I want to leave everybody with this. Especially in 2022 and from here on out, we got to make sure that you can determine your character by observing what you stand for or what you fall for. Don't seek success. Instead, seek God approach, order, and excellence for your life. And this could probably change your picture.
God bless you. We needed that today. We needed that word. And of course, you are celebrating virtually and in person. When are your services, Pastor Brooks?
Sunday from 10:30 till noon, every Sunday from 10:30 to noon, and on Tuesdays from 7 to 8, 1 hour of power. And I'm liking, Santita, the word, a great central, a word, I'm sure a great central. If you're serving God, He better be a God that can really help you. If not, it's not a God, it's people and religion, because God really is a person that proves His word, and if you have faith in God, it produces. It produces. So you got to make sure on Sundays from 10:30 to noon we have service, and on Tuesday from 7 to 8. And I started church stuff a long time ago because it didn't work. So I got into the Word of God, and it has changed my life forever. People, you could do this. You could do it for real. There's direction. There's guidance. It really, really is. But you got to be in Christ. You have a lot of people say, I got Jesus, and that's enough. Santita, no, it's not. He said, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Approach to really help us do things and see things different. What we're doing is not bad, but we could use a different approach.
Well, look, just very quickly, do you think that we are, since we couldn't attend services for more than a year, how has church, in your estimation, changed? How has our approach to church changed? I got about a minute.
I wouldn't say our approach to church. I would say our thoughts on church. So that we're clear, this is kind of clarity. I teach at Great Central Santita. The church has not changed, and it will not change. But we have to keep church in its proper perspective. Church is not the building. It's not the pastors. It's not the apostles. It's not the people who would come upon this rock. I'll be in my church, which is what we just talked about today. God's church is His word.
Okay.
And only those who operate so God can get the glory in earth. It's not a ministry. It's not a church. It's not a pastor. It's not a building. It's not a person who sits upon this rock. I'll build my church. So the church is the word of God. Now we create a lot of ministries and all this. So their mindset has to be back towards God. With that different approach again. We got to make sure we never take God's word in our hearts, out of our hearts, to trust anything that's not like God. That's what's happening in the world today.
Okay.
We're seeing what we're seeing instead of putting faith in God.
All right. Pastor Darius Brooks, everybody. Pastor Darius Brooks. You can see him this Sunday night with the Tommies and Donnie McClurkin and Vicki Winans at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. Is going to be something fantastic. And it's all free, the Rainbow Push Convention. Thank you, Pastor Brooks. Let me go to, we've got to catch Dr. Knighton. She's on a plane. Very quickly, Dr. Knighton, brilliant, infection preventionist, got this big new position. We're so excited for you, Case Western Reserve University. As you take off, we just found out that Dr. Fauci, who's been vaxxed and boosted twice, tested positive for COVID. You know, I think we're always a little surprised, not a little surprised, a lot surprised, because when we think of vaccines, we think of vaccines with the old definition before it was changed a year or so ago. What can his diagnosis teach us in this moment, Dr. Knighton?
Good morning. So it should teach us that we should not let up on our practices. One of the most important things to think about is why did that happen? And the problem is we have to stop thinking that medicines are going to keep us safe. And that even though they may help us, they're not necessarily the end all be all.
All right. Well, you know, we certainly do need to keep our infection practices in order. Do you think that it's made a difference at 81, right? That he's been vaxxed and boosted twice?
So I do. I think that in this particular instance, and the thing is, it's a probability game, right? So we know that as you age, then you tend to have more chronic conditions. You may be more prone to different illnesses. And so just the whole notion of aging is something called immunosenescence. And it's when your immune system is lower just as a result of getting older. It means that even too, the cough reflex may decrease. It means that your appetite may change. So all of these things happen when you age. And so as a result of that, you may need more devices, you may need more medicine. And so a lot of times that is where the issues come in terms of people being more ill. So in his instance and many others, then having preventative measures in place means that it'll actually reduce clinically relevant symptoms. So I can say that it likely may have helped him.
Well, just very quickly, how long should he isolate? How long should those who've encountered him since he's had this diagnosis maybe be quarantined?
So it's typically about 10 days until 5 to 10 days after symptoms have resolved. For someone that's asymptomatic, they are recommended of course the 5 days, but if they are symptomatic, then it would be that time would start after the symptoms have resolved.
What about those who've been exposed to him, people who've worked with him? Should they quarantine?
Yes, and not only just quarantine, I would recommend that going to get tested within 48 to 72 hours after that time frame. It may not show up right away, but if it is going to show up, then typically that will give it enough time in order for them to be able to detect a positive.
Okay. Dr. Shanita Knighton, everybody. I don't want the people on the plane to get upset with you. So we are going to let you go.
And so I'm on getting off in order to be able to get onto a connector. I wanted to make sure that I caught you all this morning. And then Santita also wanted to make reference to the fact that I appreciate some of the morning stars and even individuals on Twitter for acknowledging the fact that yes, their hand hygiene may have not been as optimal, but the fact that they actually practice more now because they realize how maybe not good of a job they were doing. And so just as I mentioned, that is the number one thing that you can do to prevent the spread of infection or even be able to attract it. So continue to practice and practice correctly.
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I told you, you've not made me paranoid. You've made me and all of us aware. Because at the beginning of this pandemic and throughout the pandemic, we've heard from everybody but you, but the infection preventionists. People told us to be afraid of the virus, not how we could protect ourselves against it. And that is something that we've really sought to do with you and with Dr. Verholten. Just, no, we don't need to be fearful of this, particularly when you have a survival rate that is so high with this. I mean, everybody doesn't have to die and everybody doesn't. But it seems to me Dr. Knight, that COVID meets you where you are. Wherever your baseline health is, it goes in for the attack. What do you want us to know today? I'm so glad that people are reaching out to you.
So that prevention matters, and prevention is better than treatment. I'll continue to emphasize that. And with that being said, it is understanding that the things that we mentioned are all risk-lowering measures that can help to keep you safe. But if you don't practice them and you don't stay diligent and you tend to let up on your practices, then you'll be more likely to end up in a bad situation.
Everybody, please take care of yourselves. Are there any extra precautions you take when you're traveling? Just very quickly, 1 minute.
Yes. So for example, like even right now, just even getting off of the plane, even if I decided, which I do anyway, when I go to TSA, I actually make sure that I still keep a mask on, and that is because I do not want to touch my face after the individual has handled my card. After I touch many surfaces and screens, it helps me to stop from putting things directly in contact with my eyes, mouth, and nose. And then when I know that I'm getting on the plane and the air is recirculated and there's no air exchange, I actually also make sure that I keep it on, because I realize that I might be sitting next to an individual that may be coughing that may not necessarily say that a cough is a cough. And unfortunately, this is something that continues to happen often that people tend to minimize.
Dr. Santita Knighton, safe travels, my dear sister. We pray for you, traveling grace and mercies. Can't wait to speak with you in the morning. Of course, sending our love and prayers to Dr. Anthony Fauci, who tested positive for COVID. But this COVID's still out here, everybody. It is still here. And we have to behave like it is. Act like it's gone. It's not gone anywhere. I hope that his diagnosis will serve as a reminder. Dr. Knighton, you get the final word, 30 seconds.
I'll say we got some rough days ahead, whether people choose to acknowledge it or not. It's to not be fearful, but it's to make sure that you have your armor on to make sure you're ready. Because unfortunately, it is the reality of where we are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I say to you not to be fearful, because people who are afraid make bad decisions. And people who are afraid are disempowered. You have power. And when you have information, you have even more power. So let nothing have power over you but God. That's what Mrs. Juanita Passmore, one of the pioneering Black women executives, she was at Johnson Products for years and years. She told my mother and then told me, let nothing have power over you but God. And we're going to make it through this. We already are. Oh, absolutely. That's why I love you and love the information that you give us every day. Everybody, let's talk about Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker tied in the great state of Georgia. Who'd have thunk it? Back in just a minute. Dr. Knighton, thank you. Dr. Knighton, thank you. Sending you much love. Let me know that you got home safely, okay?
No, absolutely, and I'm sure that I will be. I'm happy to actually be headed home, but I had a wonderful week, Santita. I can't say it enough. It was definitely an embracing moment in terms of like the membership of the organization and me being the first infection prevention is to transfer over. So everybody from the CEO to the membership, the strategic partner, is just very supportive and happy that I'm there. So I had an awesome time.
Oh, well, you deserve it. And I'm so glad that we have you. And I'm just so glad that we have you. You have no idea. So just bless
yes, I'm
your
very
heart.
humbling, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you for having me. I really do. And just being able to give me a platform. I appreciate our friendship just so much, that I know that you've done at this point in my life. So thank you for that.
Well, I feel the same way about you. And I love you, and I'm excited for you. And praise God. praise the Lord. I thank God for you, and I'm very excited for you, for all that God is doing with you. And all that you are willing to do. Oh, absolutely. But girl, just get on home first. Give your husband and your beautiful family my love. How about that?
All right.
You know,
I will.
I'm that friend. Get home.
I know.
Go home, child. All right, sweetie.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I'm like, these folks, what?
Attorney Hopper on the line.
Okay, sweetie, and could do me a favor. Let me know as soon as you can that someone is or is not there. Okay, because it's hard for me to send a text because I'm doing it upside down. Because I'm having to hold the mic.
The reason why I didn't send you the text earlier is because I was trying to talk to Nathan about her situation.
No, just let me know. But even then, just let me know something because otherwise I have to stretch. Okay, because I don't want to toss. And, and then, sometimes stretching is not the best thing because you're trying to get people off. Okay, so just let me know. Thank you. Okay. CK?
All right, Attorney Patello's up.
Oh, okay. How you doing? You know what? Let's and let us make sure that their sound is great. CK, are you on a speaker?
I'm on speaker. Do you want me to put the ear thing in?
Not the ear. Let me hear you without the speaker, because the earbuds are not. If you're going to be in the speaker, hold the phone near your mouth so it'll be a microphone. Okay.
Right.
That's perfect. What you're doing right now is great because yesterday people couldn't hear you. Let me hear you again.
You know what? I'm glad it was raining. I think that's what it was yesterday.
Also, Attorney Jones.
No, I'm just, yesterday's gone. I just want to make sure that your sound is right today.
Right.
You sound great right now. Okay, but if you, hey, Robert, let me hear you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I got your message later, and so I am so sorry I wasn't able to call your friend.
25 seconds. No problem at all.
Okay, but thank you for that.
Hey, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
I've called Chaparral a few times, and each time it goes straight to
Oh,
voicemail.
you know what?
I don't think I'll be able to get her.
She's on vacation.
Oh, she's okay. So
Okay.
not today then.
Yeah,
All right,
not today.
sounds good.
Not till Monday.
Gotcha. All right, bring it on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me on the Santita Jackson Show at WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. You can meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please meet us over there. Seeking to grow. Please like and subscribe there. And please like and share the show. Santita Jackson and Friends is my Facebook page. That is the page that you should go to. That is where I can receive friends. And I certainly want to receive and embrace you. I hope you'll be joining us this weekend, the 18th through the 22nd, at the Rainbow Push headquarters on Saturday. Pete Buttigieg, the secretary, will be kicking things off with us. We'll be having a special seminar. Facebook is coming in to teach you how to use Meta. That's right. And it's all free. It's all free. So you need to come on over to 930 50th Street on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we move over to the South Shore Cultural Center. The South Shore Cultural Center, the beautiful cultural center right here on the lake on the south side. And it's all free. It's going to have some great food, have some great times, and have some great discussions about the great issues of our day. And I'm going to show you how to get into business, particularly if you like sport. being an athlete is not the only way you make money in sport. You make money making and selling the hot dogs. I mean, selling the hot dogs to the stadium, and on and on and on. And we need to be a part of that. And Reverend Jackson is providing the means for you to do that. I mean, whether it's in basketball, football, hockey, soccer, whatever it is, we're opening up those new markets. So much is going on. Midterms 2020. Everybody is looking at these midterms here in Chicago, June 28th, everybody. You can vote early right now up until the 27th. Please, 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 please go vote. They're estimating that this is going to be one of the lowest turnout elections ever, which is not good news. It's not good news. So please get out and vote. And and then there's so many shenanigans. I mean, because there's no effort by the corporate media to let you know that we're going to have an election on June 28th. And we're not featuring the town hall meetings and all of that. It's just not right. And it's almost as if they're participating in the depression, if you will, and suppression of the vote. Now remember, that's another way of suppressing the vote by not reminding people that it's coming. Think about that. So spread the word. June 28th, voting day. But it's voting day through June 28th. We're doing early voting right now. So get on out and vote in the Illinois primary, everybody. Let's look at Georgia. Georgia has captured our imaginations, and not just our imaginations, our thoughts. I mean, they had an historic election. Well, starting in 2018, we were so excited by Stacey Abrams, who nearly became the governor. And many people make the argument that had her voters not been purged/stolen by the then Secretary of State who became her opponent in the gubernatorial race, she'd be governor today. Imagine that. Well, now she's running again, and she's running behind Brian Kemp. He has the power of the incumbency behind him. But not that far behind, but still, she has a fight on her hands. And what about Raphael Warnock, the brilliant pastor theologian of Ebenezer Baptist Church, Daddy King's and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's home church? Well, everyone thought that when Herschel Walker was put forth as a candidate, that this was a joke. He doesn't have very, very strong syntax, to put it mildly. And people have always felt that he was not, well, certainly not someone who would be able to match Reverend Dr. Warnock in a debate. Nonetheless, he and Raphael Warnock are tied in a dead heat, according to many polls. So I said, let me get two great Georgians to talk about this. I just don't know how this is supposed to work. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push, past president of the National Bar Association, host of her own show on WAOK down in Atlanta. I know she's got a lot to say. We're going to start off with you, Robert Patillo, WAOK host, of course, every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push. We're so glad that both of you are going to be here with us next week. Well, this starting, I guess, tomorrow at the Rainbow Push Conference. We're so excited. What is happening down there in Florida? I mean, not in Florida, because Florida is like the state where we see a lot of things that are very interesting. But now Georgia. How are they tied? I see that Herschel Walker, according to this data, is the favorite of white voters. Talk to me, Robert.
Well, you have to look at the Trump effect when it comes to the political stratification of the state of Georgia. If you look at the polling data, the white voters in the state, you're looking at them turning out in massive numbers. Look at the very hard primary that you just had, where Herschel Walker was up against some legitimate Republican candidates. Gary Black, the agricultural secretary of the state of Georgia, Kelvin King, who's a Air Force veteran, a small business owner, legitimate candidates, and Herschel Walker beat them, going away without a runoff. So this idea that, the one name recognition is very strong. Herschel Walker has pretty much 100% name recognition in the state of Georgia. And then, as President Trump said, they love the low information voters. A lot of people, they don't go by all the political machinations. They do not pay attention to, policy positions or whether or not somebody can talk. They really just go by who do I know and who does President Trump tell me to vote for. I think we've seen that throughout the country. J.D. Vance in Ohio becoming the Republican nominee there based pretty much on just the Trump nomination. Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania winning. Living in New Jersey most of his life, having no political experience, selling bootleg diet pills for 20 years. He's the Republican nominee for Senate there and has a legitimate chance of winning. So I don't think we can completely wipe off and ignore and take as a joke any of these candidates, because look at who's in the Senate right now, right there in Alabama. Tommy Tuberville, the Auburn football coach, is the United States Senator because of the Trump endorsement and what President Trump has done. We've seen this to be January 6th hearings. It's going around the country to consolidate power. It's less so whether or not Herschel Walker can win. It's more so whether or not it's really a referendum on Donald Trump and his power in the Republican Party. So I think that when you're looking at these campaigns around the country, if you want to keep control of the United States Senate in particular, you're going to have to make sure you're putting the money in as a party and putting the boot leather in, knocking on doors, turning your voters out. And I also on the national level, Democrats are going to have to start putting some wins on the board to make it easier for these candidates to be able to turn out their voters, because you can't simply run on, hey, sorry we didn't get anything done for you, give us some more votes and we'll try to do it again. That's not a compelling message to get millennial and Gen Z voters out again. So there's a lot of work to get done, less than 150 days to do it. And I think you're going to have to see the same kind of concerted effort from Democrats as you're seeing from Republicans. With the same way that Donald Trump is going around the country having a rally for his people every single week, you're going to have to start seeing big-name Democrats do that, not just wait till GOTV to get started.
CK, what's your take on this?
Well, my take on it is that we must remember that football is a religion. It is a religion. I see it up close and personal in my own family, but football is a religion. And when you add to religion Donald Trump, who some people feel is a cult-like figure, when you put those two together, then what you get is a Herschel Walker, who is coming dangerously close to defeating Raphael Warnock. Now, being a Georgian, seeing what I see, I believe it's going to be tight, but I believe that Raphael Warnock will pull it off. But we cannot, no one should take Herschel Walker for granted. All the things that would make him, under any other circumstance, anywhere in the world and in life, a non-desirable candidate, is superseded by the fact that football is a religion. He's a Georgian football player. Doesn't matter whether he graduates, didn't graduate. Doesn't matter how many women he pushed down the stairs for feet, allegedly. Football is a religion. So
Whoa. Hold on. When you say it's a religion, because, I think when you go through the South and when you go through these less urban areas, it really is. I mean, when you get to Michigan State, when you get to the University of Michigan, when you get to Ohio State, when you get to these places, these big football schools, they run the town and the surrounding area and the region. Please explain, when you say that it's a religion, what that means and how Herschel Walker, in your estimation, fits into that.
Well, Herschel Walker, let's face it, he was a fabulous football player, well recognized, and that is not lost on anyone. It is that celebrity, the fact he's a fabulous football player, and the fact that football is a uniting force amongst, if you even just think of politics, people who under other circumstances would never be in the same space because they can't stand each other politically or in any other way, can't stand each other. They will be united at a football game, sitting in the stands, cheering on those mostly black players. And Herschel Walker is that player. He is one of the most, celebrated, well-recognized football players in the state of Georgia. So so all of that, people remember that. Remember seeing him run up and down the field, taking them to victory, scoring, doing so well. That's Herschel Walker. So when you have football being a religion, meaning people follow football. They follow the players. They love the players on the field. They may not love them off the field, but they love them on the field. He has all of that momentum, that muscle memory that people in Georgia, in rural areas, people who are conservative, people who are Trump supporters, and people who just are not really engaged in the political process, they may know something about football. They may not know anything about politics. They may not understand or care about some of the politics, but they do know something about football. And in places like Georgia, with the demographics of Georgia, that becomes very important. So that's what I mean about the religion. When there's a religion, when there's a cult-like sport, I'm going to call it that, people follow the cult. They're following Herschel in terms of that party. And he beat, not just prevailed, he beat all those other candidates hands down. There is so much money backing him that it's really, to even articulate from an intellectual standpoint, political standpoint, social standpoint, that he's running neck and neck with Senator Raphael Warnock is a travesty. But that is the reality of where we are, and that's the reality of football. Football is a religion, and for people who believe in religion, believe in God, they will recognize in the power of God. Some people view football players that way, and when you ignite that fire in people's bellies in a political context, they're gonna remember him running on the football field, and because they view that as the American way, doing all things good, all things American, and all the wife beating, psychological instability, and all the other things, the allegations and things that people believe to be true about him, just fall by the wayside.
And Santita, on that same point, we also have to point out the hypocrisy that you have so many quote-unquote Southern Christian conservatives that have been browbeating and lecturing us for the last 30, 40, 50 years about family values, about believing in Christ. You have a Southern Baptist minister who pastors a church, and these people are still supporting someone like Herschel Walker, who has admitted to putting a gun to the temple of his pregnant wife, to stalking two women as recently as 2012, pushing a woman down the stairs, choking a woman into a coma, holding a razor blade to a woman's throat. These are the things he's admitted to. And the Southern Christian conservatives are still backing him 100% versus Baptist ministers. Should tell you all that you need to know about the hypocrisy of the political leadership, that when it comes down to it, they are less worried about what they say they believe in, and they're more worried about quote-unquote tax cuts. They're more worried about making sure they can control women, making sure they can control minorities. And as long as you continue to allow them to have their political power, they could give a damn about whether or not you believe in any of the Christian values they have said and espoused over the years. And as long as Donald Trump can line somebody up and trot them out there, that's who they're going to be in favor of. So I think the Democrats are going to have to get a little bit more aggressive, particularly with less than 150 days left for the election, to make sure that many of these biography issues come out. Because if on the other side of things, if Raphael Warnock had the same resume as Herschel Walker, you'd already see the commercials running in heavy rotation, making sure people understand his biography, not just as everything from the stalking allegations to the domestic violence to the 12 personalities that he says he has in his head, not believing in evolution. I mean, lying about being a police officer, lying about being an FBI agent, saying he saying that he didn't remember beating all these women, all those sorts of things. But Democrats don't like playing in that sandbox for some odd reason, even though Republicans, if you look at the Ketanji Brown-Jackson confirmation hearings, they're willing to play in that sandbox. So at the end of the day, we have to figure out whether or not we have aggressive enough political consultants who are willing to make sure that they win.
Well, and we have to be very careful, because with all of these allegations against Herschel Walker, the fact is, this is a very high-powered, highly pressured position. It is unfair to put someone who clearly is as challenged as Herschel Walker is, mentally and emotionally, in that position. And quite frankly, I worry for him and the people close to him. I really, really do. Because although I don't agree with his politics, I don't like to see anyone put in a horrible position. And I think that this is not a good thing. And the fact is, the odds favor him winning and replacing Raphael Warnock in Georgia. The odds favor him. So you got to think about that. While in the next segment, we're going to be talking with you, Robert uh, Tillo, and Dr. Bob Starks, brilliant political scientist here in Chicago, about the fact that Republicans are making a real push in the Black community, in the AAPI community, in the Hispanic community. They're making a real push to recruit people to their party. They're setting up community centers all over the country, coast to coast. And remember, Donald Trump's numbers with Black people rose, with Hispanics rose. Think about that. Let me go to Philip. Philip, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Now, on Herschel Walker, he was like Temple Hill, Alabama, who was coach for all. Everybody loves him. He won a national title, and Herschel was a Heisman Trophy winner. He brought a lot of income to those folks in Georgia. So they always want to love him. Now, as far as, now everybody has to remember, Trump gave out stimulus checks. Even though it was piecemeal and everything, he always made sure, during a bad time, people got some money. And that's all they remember. Oh, he gave us some money. Mm-hmm. Biden, first thing he does, he flips the game. So, well, I said 2,000. Well, the 600 Trump gave plus 1,400 I gave you now, that's 2,000. Come on, man. That's not what, and just like he said, we give him a Ice Cube about the contract with America after he won the contract. He's still waiting. So Biden, you can't believe what he said. And then they're trying to split the Black vote, and where the Democrats are concerned more about Black women, and they're like, oh, well, okay, all right, Black guys, whatever. And we're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And that's the problem.
Well, and I think not having the unified agenda, Philip, because the fact is, whatever party you're in, I expect when Black people get in a particular position, I expect them to fight for Black people. I expect them to fight for, and what helps Black people helps all people. That has historically been true. Whenever you take care of the most vulnerable, you help everybody. And it's just, you got to think about that. Let me go to Jewel from New York. Jewel, my gem, how are you?
Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning, Jewel.
I got a call. Yes. Been a while. I said, I got a call, and I'm just so busy with the baby, with my grandson, and I'm so concerned. I saw an article that is that the Abbott formula place they got flooded again. Now, let me tell you something. My daughter does breastfeeding, but she has to use a supplement of something similar because the baby's getting big when they go back to work. So the conversation I'm having now makes these people do something that's listening about getting this formula out here for these children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
With addiction and everything else. I got more demands, but I'll discuss that with you later. So.
Bless your heart. Well, we're praying for you and your family, and give that grandbaby a big hug and kiss. In fact, everybody, Morning Stars, Jewel, Dr. Reeves just became a grandmother. Amir Josiah. We're so excited for them, and excited for you. But we've got to get this shortage together, and it's completely uncalled for. You have about 4 companies that control almost 90% of the market. That's ridiculous. But you know what? We're going to come back another day, C.K. Hoffler, and tease out what's happening in the Stacey Abrams race, because she's behind Brian Kemp. And I want to know why that is and what the path to victory is for her. Got a couple minutes for you, CK. What do you see with Herschel Walker, who is, without a debate, without a doubt, he essentially is a front runner? Wow. CK Hoffler.
And that's what I call wow and double wow. What I see, however, is I think Raphael Warnock will be able to pull it out. Right now, I don't know if President Biden is very helpful.
But I do think the Democratic machinery needs to get in high gear in Georgia. There's a lot at stake. But I think Raphael Warnock can pull it out. He has a good shot at winning. He's an incumbent. A lot of people believe he's done a good job as our senator, a great job as our senator in the great state of Georgia, and want him to continue. But I will say this. The Democrats must take nothing for granted. Nothing. Not a single minute, hour, or day. And they've got to begin to pump out those commercials. There are a lot of very damaging commercials about Democrats that are being pumped on the airwaves in Georgia. Very damaging. And they need to, I don't think they need to go low. They need to really stop waiting for later to pump out information that's important for the voters to know about him and about Herschel Walker. And it's going to be unfortunate to see that happen, but it must happen because Herschel Walker, if we're not careful, will be the next senator from the state of Georgia.
Oh.
And that would be a travesty. I say that as Georgia. It would be a travesty. And he's almost there. So this is the time. There's no time to pontificate, be intellectual, and have an intellectual debate.
Mm-hmm.
The Democratic Party needs to support Raphael Warnock in a major way in Georgia and do it.
Well, amen to that. I mean, and look at what, because the Democrats did not, for example, did not support Charles Booker. He almost became the nominee. What if they put all of their energy behind him? What if they'd done that? Think about that. They could do that. I mean, Robert Patillo, I got 1 minute. What is going? I mean, are the Democrats giving Raphael Warnock the biggest push in your estimation?
Not at all. And I think one of the big problems is bringing in consultants from outside of the state to run campaigns where they don't understand the state. These Republicans are not going to pull any punches when it comes to going low, even if they have to make it up. The Democrats is not dirty, it's the truth. Tell the truth about what these candidates are doing, because right now the Democratic brand is toxic. People associated with inflation, people associated with high prices, empty shelves, all those sorts of things. They're going to have to overcome that by running an aggressive campaign, not simply kowtowing and hoping for the better angels of America to come save you. That's not how campaigns work anymore. They're going to get in there and get in the arena and try to win.
Absolutely. Democrats need to stop playing and stop taking for granted the black vote. Don't do that. And Republicans have peeped that. They've always known it, but now they see an opening. And they're opening community centers all around the country, CK. All around the country, Robert. All around the country. And they are actively recruiting black voters, Asian American voters, Pacific Islander voters, Hispanic voters. Oh, yeah. They're doing it. They're doing it. But are the Democrats doing that? Progressives are calling upon the Democrats. Why don't you do the same thing or do something similar? Do something where you're recruiting voters. Why not a voter registration campaign? Reverend Jesse Jackson's been calling for that for, 50 years. Why not register? I mean, really, quite frankly, it doesn't even have to be partisan. In fact, I'd rather it not be. Register every high school senior. Register them to vote. Let them make their own decision about their party. But get people registered. What? Come on, everybody. Let's talk about this. What do you think about the Republicans and their recruitment of black voters? Right in the heart of the communities, and Hispanic voters, and Asian American voters. Whoa, this is great. Back in just a minute. CK? Thank you so much for being with us. Call me later.
Okay, I will. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Oh, wow. Robert? Robert, this guy could win. And I always felt that he could. I heard more people saying, oh, that would never happen. I'm like, are you crazy? Of course he could win.
Well, like I said, the problem is the Democratic Party has a toxic brand right now. And then secondarily, the fact that they're not running an aggressive enough campaign. The commercials they're running in Georgia right now on the Republican side are basically saying that Raphael Warnock was deciding votes cause inflation. Now, that doesn't even make sense.
Oh, my God.
But they don't care because they're not really tethered to the truth in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But Democrats made the run a commercial saying Raphael Warren was saying that Herschel Walker pushed a woman down a flight of stairs, which is 100% true and has been admitted to. These aren't allegations. These are things that we know to be true. He held a razor blade to a pregnant woman's throat. They won't talk about that. He held a gun to the temple of his pregnant wife's head while I think she was 7 or 8 months pregnant. They won't talk about that because they're too holier than thou to bring that up.
I don't believe that they're holier than thou. I don't believe that they're holier than thou. I don't believe that. Not at all. No. I just think that they are. They do not support people who have a progressive bent with as much fervor as they do people who are corporatists. I mean, they just don't do it.
One thing I realized in Georgia politics and Democratic politics in general, probably a decade ago, is their relationship with progressives and black voters is a lot more wrong than their relationship with Republican voters.
Mm-hmm.
So it came down to having Republicans that they kind of agree with in office, or having progressives they're going to push. They're more comfortable sometimes having the Republicans there because that's closer to their ideological base.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's my only point. You know, they know what the deal is. This is about corporatism, you know, versus populism. Period. That's it. That's all.
Joe Biden has a lot more in common with Joe Manchin than he does with AOC, and that comes out in the party platforms and politics.
You have not said. Yes.
I have Dr. Starks.
Oh, okay, Dr. Starks. Fantastic.
Hi, how are you this morning?
How are you, Dr. Starks? I have a very, very exciting gentleman with us. He is the Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push. Absolutely brilliant. And he is
very good.
Oh, absolutely. And he's got a wonderful radio show. It's not just wonderful, it's a fantastic radio show. Every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time in Atlanta. Brilliant guy. Attorney Robert Patillo. Robert Patillo, this is one of your someone who helped to raise me in Rainbow Push. Bless his heart. Dr. Robert Starks, he's one of the preeminent political scientists in the country. We're so excited to have him.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? How is Atlanta coming? Atlanta's top. But I think politics are a little bit harder right now. Well, we all have our fingers crossed and praying that Stacey Abrams and Warnock can come through, you know, and in Georgia. We really are hoping that. How does it look down there for them? Not great currently, but I think we still have 150 days till the election. For Abrams, part of the issue is that Kemp hasn't done a particularly bad job, and their campaign really didn't take advantage of the head start that they had while Kemp was in a primary fight. So they have some space to make up. And then on the other side, Herschel Walker has great name recognition, and the Warnock campaign is running a very nice and Christian campaign that the Walker campaign is not. Very good. Well, we're hoping and praying for the both of them. Absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, this is it's gonna be tight. You can see that.
It's gonna be tight all over the country. All over the country.
Well, this is why we have to talk about what the Republicans are doing. Because they are they're smart, and they, and the Democrats, you'll say all of this on the air. Democrats are very, very comfortable, with corporatists, and you know that, Dr. Starks.
Well, the Republicans have a lot more money than the Democrats, and they're spending strategically. Unfortunately.
Well, but we have more people, and they don't take advantage of that. And they also do not make space for, as I was sharing with you, the nuances in our politics. It's all or nothing. It's all or nothing. And that's not the way politics in real life works, Um, because black people are socially conservative. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. And that needs to be addressed. It's just, ah, what can I tell you? I just think that we have got um, a real live, let's just say an interesting situation.
Very interesting.
It's an interesting time to be alive. My mother and I were talking about that last night, and she sends her love and regards to you.
Thank you. Same here.
Oh, thank you. I will do that.
5 seconds.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, the second hour, Thursday, June 16th, 2022. The Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet me on WCPT820.com or AM950Radio.com, but come on over. The Santita Jackson Morning Stars have a great time every day on the Santita Jackson Show, Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. So get on over there, everybody, and meet up with the Morning Stars. We have a great time, and everybody comes in there looking for each other. And one of the great gifts is that we've all become family. Start looking out for each other and looking for each other every morning here from 6 to 8 a.m. Let's talk about the Republicans' push to get black voters and Hispanic voters and Asian American voters and Pacific Islander voters. They're setting up community centers. What do you think about that? In the neighborhoods all across the country. As we're watching Raphael Warnock in Georgia fighting for political survival. Indeed, Herschel Walker is favored to become the next senator from the great state of Georgia. Stacey Abrams is struggling. Are the Democrats helping them enough? I mean, these are like two seats that we are going to be looking at. These are big races. What do you think about that? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And then, of course, we'll be talking about emotional trauma that parents pass unknowingly to their children, genetically. Yeah, what are the implications of that? Think of those of us who've been enslaved. Think of people who have been violated, people who've been raped. Anyone who's been traumatized emotionally, you can unknowingly pass that on to your children through the blood. Got to talk about that with Dr. Max Wolf. That's a big deal. Everybody, I want you to call me, text me, 773-763-9278. In Chicago, we're going to have another hot one, 92 degrees is supposed to be high. It's already warm. Sunny, beautiful day, but please drink your water. Check in on loved ones no matter their age, but particularly the elderly and those who have compromised immune systems. Check on people and make sure they're okay, but make sure you stay hydrated and make sure that if someone, for example, is kind of talking out of their head or if they don't seem right, they could be having heat stroke. Make sure they get the attention that they need, the medical attention that they need. All right, everybody. And I think it's at fire stations and police stations. That can be cooling stations, libraries. Make sure you're getting what you need today, everybody. The Dow just had another volatile day, everybody, even as we're watching the Federal Reserve really hike their interest rates. The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 percentage point on Wednesday in an aggressive move to tackle inflation. Will that work, everybody? Will that work? Wow, we're seeing the volatility in the stocks. Going to ask Dr. Wolf about your 401ks. In the NBA finals, will the Warriors take it tonight? Well, we're going to see Warriors versus the Celtics tonight, and the Avalanche versus the Lightning. They're going to have a couple of days off. That doesn't happen until the 18th. In Major League Baseball, wow, White Sox 13-0 over the Tigers. Woo. The Padres 19-5 over the Cubs, and the Twins shut out the Mariners 5-0. They'll be playing the Diamondbacks later on today. We've been talking about these interest rates and this inflation. On the south side of Chicago, many gas stations are $6 and $7 a gallon. Out in California, $10 a gallon. Can you afford that? Well, guess what? U.S. consumers, according to this headline from Common Dreams, are getting fleeced. Progressive members on Congress on yesterday. Ro Khanna was one of the leaders, my dear friend, ramped up calls for windfall profits tax on oil giants after President Biden directly pleaded with BP, Exxon, Shell, and other companies to boost production instead of just padding their bottom lines. And check this out, everybody. Chevron quadrupled their profits. Exxon doubled their profits during the Ukraine crisis alone. They're just making money hand over fist, and they're not even justifying why they're raising these prices and making life for us very difficult. A lot of parents can't get their kids to school. A lot of parents and people can't get to work. They can't drive. And they might be beyond a really solid public transportation system that exists in America. Our infrastructure is more than 100 years old. There's a lot that we need to be thinking about, everybody. Can't even afford to live. Dr. Anthony Fauci tested positive for COVID. He has been vaccinated. He's been boosted twice. He's experiencing mild symptoms. We continue to pray for him. Indeed, he'll be working today because he does have mild symptoms. And now the COVID-19 vaccines could be available for children as young as 6 months, as early as next week, according to the White House and FDA advisors. They voted unanimously on Wednesday to authorize the Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccine for emergency use. Hasn't been authorized yet, but they authorized the emergency use for our young children. All right, everybody, you know we've been looking for financial freedom here, and we want you to call Team Hochberg, and get a free consultation. If you have poor credit, no credit, you're trying to build some credit, rebuild your credit, you have high credit card debt, you want to find out about VA loans, you want to find out about refinancing your existing home, purchasing a home. You might think that that's beyond your grasp. No, it is not. Even if it is right now, what they can do is help you to develop a plan so that you can become a homeowner in a year or two, if not sooner. So call Team Hochberg at 855-563-2843 or 855-56-DAVID. That's much easier. 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com, 56david.com. You can meet Tony who posted a 5-star Google review after working with Team Hochberg. He said, what a great lender. I heard David Hochberg giving great advice on several stations, including this one. Got to get him right back real soon. He said it sounded too good to be true, but guess what? He found out the team was amazing, and he did great things to him. He gave a big shout out to Team Hochberg. Very responsive, he said. They make things happen. And guess what? There are hundreds of other reviews just like that. All you have to do is put Team Hochberg, HOCBERG, in your browser, and you're going to see hundreds of laudatory explanations of what people have been through and how they brought them through to the other side. And they've eliminated their credit card debt. They've helped them to save their homes, refinance their homes, or even buy a home. So you owe it to yourself. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com, so that you can be on the road to financial freedom. Everybody, let's talk about what Republicans are doing. I think it bears mentioning. They are now, they've got progressives up in arms because progressives are noticing what the Republican National Committee are doing. They are investing considerable money in community centers all around the country. And they are targeting Black, Latino, Native American, AA communities, Asian American communities. It's according to this wonderful report from American Prospect magazine. And they've opened at least 21 community centers, like in Robeson County, North Carolina, a former Democratic stronghold. And then you've got, according to this News One report, Black people and their disappointment in what they feel that they have not gotten from the Biden administration. So there are a lot of moving parts here. But these community centers are opening, and as we are watching, the Black vote in the Republican Party, at least in the presidential campaign, increase. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. I've got one of the premier political scientists in the country, Northeastern Illinois University, so professor. And indeed, I've met him in the movement so many years ago, coming out of Operation Push, Rainbow Push, Operation Breadbasket. He's worked with everybody. Leon Finney, we can never forget him. Dr. Starks. So many wonderful people. Hermine Hartman. Oh yeah, I gotta call the roll. We cannot forget them. We cannot forget him in particular. And I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Because when I saw this, I said, I've got to talk with Dr. Starks about this. Because you are a numbers man. You count votes. You say, hey, Jesse Jackson has registered more people than any person in American history. Wow.
Absolutely.
It
He
was,
should have the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know why he has not been given that. We've got to continue work.
well, that's okay. They give it to people who drop bombs now, so I'm good. That's right. Really, let's keep Reverend's record where it is. That having been said, what about this new push in communities of color that the Republicans in which they're engaging? What do you make of that? I mean, as we're watching Raphael Warnock struggle in Georgia, as we're watching Stacey Abrams struggle, as we watch Charles Booker struggle, he just had to, and Reverend Jackson when he ran, and Bernie Sanders. It seems that populists have a problem, and the Democrats don't help them out. What's going on?
Well, first of all, the Republican Party has tons of money. Number one. Number two, they are focusing on the disappointment that has been expressed around the country among these non-white groups about their disappointment of the Biden administration. The Biden administration refuses to bust out the filibuster so that we can get voting rights and other issues taken care of. And remember, the African American community and other non-white communities spell the difference between defeat and the election of Mr. Biden. So many African Americans across the country are deeply disappointed with the performance of Biden and the Democratic Congress and Senate. So that's if you go across the country and ask African Americans what are the major reasons why they are disappointed with Biden, one of the number one reasons is voting rights. I mean, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act has not been able to come through. We are looking at the fact that amongst Democrats, you have people like Manchin and Sinema, and they are blocking, and there's no way, there's not seem to be a way in which Biden has been able to overcome their push to keep things, in the conservative wing. So progressive African Americans in particular are very disappointed with the Biden administration, and the Republicans are piggybacking on that. Mm-hmm. One of the major pushes, Santita, is the fact that last week in the New York Times it said that there's a national push to maybe persuade Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris not to run in the next presidential election. That's a significant move on the part of many progressives. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yes. and not just progressives. You've got people like David Axelrod who are lamenting the fact that President Biden is older. So when you start hearing David Axelrod, when he's interviewed by the New York Times, the national paper of record, and these establishment organs are now saying, hey, he needs to move out the way. I'm like, okay, who's supposed to step up? Hillary? I mean, what are we going to do? The bench is not deep here. So what is the progressives, not mainline Democrats, but progressives are calling on the Democratic Party to make a similar investment in these. What do you think about that? Should that happen?
Oh, absolutely. We have to begin to push for outreach on the part of the Democratic Party as a whole to all of these communities. You can't sit back and say, well, we can't do anything because of the filibuster, because we have Manchin and Sinema. You have to make a push. I mean, this president has not mentioned voting rights or the Voting Rights Act in months, okay? And that's a very important issue in the African American community, from Atlanta to California, North Dakota, all the way down. Wherever you find minority people, they are asking the question, how is it that we get around this voter suppression? And voter suppression is real in the Republican Party. And so, for me, I am absolutely astonished at the success of these centers in non-white communities. It's astonishing. According to the report that you sent to me, can you believe that people are suckered in by, tea parties and Coca-Cola and pizza? That's astonishing. I don't understand that one. I really don't.
Well, perhaps, Robert, perhaps you have a take on this, because we're both in media, and you often say, wait a minute, I can't get Democrats, or top line Democrats, Dr. Starks, can't get them on the phone, can't get them in for an interview. I mean, Robert, it's just crazy.
Something I think people have to realize is that if you took a McDonald's hamburger and put it up against a hamburger that you made in your own kitchen hamburger is going to be better every time. McDonald's stopped trying to make a better hamburger 50 years ago. They just figured out, I just have to market the same nasty hamburger I have to you, and you'll keep giving me money, even if you can have it better and cheaper somewhere else. That's what Republicans do when it comes to politics. They don't care about having the best policies. They don't care about having the best candidates. They make sure that their people know about what their product is, and they keep pushing it in their face again and again and again until that they desire it, whether or not it makes the most sense. Look, if me or you decided we wanted to have Donald Trump on our radio show, we could get him within a week.
We could.
No ifs, no ands, no buts.
We could.
And we wanted Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Lindsey Graham on our radio show. We could have any of them next week on the show. But if we want to get Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, we're 6 years into waiting for that to happen. And they are just simply put not out there. They do not have the same type of community outreach. Donald Trump has not been president since 2020. He is in the news cycle every single day of the week. Every single candidate who runs around the country, whether it is Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, Lieutenant Governor in Pennsylvania, County Comptroller in Arizona, Donald Trump individually endorses candidates in state and local races, and then goes to the jurisdiction and holds a rally, brings TV cameras, does fundraisers for them to make sure that his candidates win. If you're up in North Georgia right now, where it's mainly Republican territory during the primary, literally on the candidate's yard signs it says Trump endorsed, Trump approved, because they have Trump's name on their signs bigger than their name on the sign. There's no reason Barack Obama couldn't do that if he really wanted to. He could be down here in Georgia campaigning for Warnock all summer if he felt like it. There's no reason you couldn't have some of these big name Democrats out here touching people on a state and local level, building those grassroots. But the corporate nature of the Democratic Party will not allow them to go talk to the people because they're not responsive to the will of the people. The only thing they're allowed to do is just show up, tell people what they want to hear for about a week before the election, and then hope for the best. And when it comes down to it, if you look at the 2020 election, Donald Trump got 22% of black men to vote for him. And if he runs again in 2024, that number's going to be over 30%. Because if you talk to black men in the streets right now, none of them can really point to anything that Joe Biden has done to benefit their lives. And they feel that their voices aren't heard in the Democratic Party. So we can keep lying about it and, do all the January 6th hearings you want and call these people racist all you want. But after getting 2 or 3 free Trump checks and gas being $2 a gallon, and Donald Trump's kind of reality show wrestler personality, that's appealing to people versus the kind of idea that, well, we brought back the moral values of the country and now gas is $6 a gallon. The Democrats got to get their stuff together, and they got about 100 days to do it. And I'm not quite sure that they have the people in positions of power at the top of the party to be able to do so.
The final word belongs to you, Dr. Starks. 2 minutes.
Well, listen, I am astonished at the response on the part of the Democrats. Democrats should have known by now what they need to do. Why is it, again, as Robert says, why is it that Barack Obama is not out on the stump pushing Democratic candidates? Why is it that you don't have people coming out strongly supporting Stacey and Warnock in Georgia? That's very crucial. If you want to maintain the Senate, you gotta support Warnock. Am I correct?
Oh, look, you're absolutely correct. But you make the point that Democrats, many of them, including President Biden, sometimes they're more comfortable with Joe Manchin than they want to say, because these are, I don't know.
I'm astonished. I am absolutely astonished. And, we don't want a resurgence of Trump and Trumpism in this country in November. But I think we're going to see a flood of Trump supporters and Trump supported candidates. And if we don't watch out, we'll see a takeover in the House as well as in the Senate on the part of the Republicans. And that would be a real serious detriment to all Americans, but especially African Americans.
Well, Dr. Bob Starks, I've got to have you back, and Robert, you've got to have him on your show. Oh no, don't think you're not going anywhere. I mean, you can go now, but I want you to know you got to come back, because I want us to break down the Stacey Abrams race and Charles Booker's race. I want to get your feedback, because we have to remember that Robert Patillo and Dr. Starks was very active with Reverend in this, helping him to think through how to do this. That's part of the reason that I have him here, because he's been part of Reverend's roundtable of advisors for 50 years. And I said, he, in the middle of at the height of the Reagan Revolution, after Reverend had registered 2.5 million voters in 84, in 86, because Reverend walked out of that convention, having been insulted and mistreated, still campaigning, registering people to vote. And so after that, the Democrats took over the Senate at the height of the Reagan Revolution in 86. Now, Shelby became a Republican after that, but come on, y'all. This can be done. Raphael Warnock does not have to lose. Herschel Walker is the favorite right now. And that is shameful. It's shameful. And shame on the DNC for allowing that. They could put all that star power behind all these people. They could do that. You need to put Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and Hakeem Jeffries and everybody on the road. Put them down there. Take Bono. I don't even know if he can vote in the United States, but he's always showing up somewhere. Take all these people down there and help this man win. Yeah, I said it. Back in just a minute. Oh, Dr. Starks, you got to come back. See, I got you. You got to come back now. How about that?
One other suggestion. Why is it that we don't get football, basketball, and people to come and support Warnock against Herschel Walker? Why not?
You know what? No one's trying. Now, I tell you what, I think Robert Patillo. Robert, you still there? I think Robert.
We got to hit the break.
I think Robert makes the point. He has made the point. Number one, you have to try. Okay. Yeah, and, well, number one, that's something you have to want to do, and then it has to be something that you will try to do. They're not doing any of that, and you know those are the facts. They're doing none of that. You know, shameful, shameful, and we are paying for it. There's no, I mean, not statistically, Herschel Walker is the favorite. As you know, as I started doing my research and I read that, I said, "Oh wow, oh wow." But Republicans, I've shared that with you. Dr. Starks, Republicans will put some money behind some black folks. And thank you so much, hon. And do we have Dr. Wolf up?
Thank you.
No, we got to go to break first.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Well, I'm going to call you back.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and we'll be ready anytime you call. Okay?
Oh, you know what? We're going to call you back because I wanted to remember Stacey Abrams, Charles Booker. You know, and even some of the shenanigans that I'm seeing in this in the campaigns here, we're supposed to have one of the lowest turnouts in history on June 28th. And I think the corporate media are part of it, as is the DNC. They're not putting out any information. They're not trying to get people to get out and vote, Dr. Starks, at all.
That's true. That's true.
They're not trying. Mm-mm. So okay. So in the next couple of days, you'll be hearing from me.
Sure, I'll be glad to come.
Oh,
Okay.
yay! Thank you.
Tell Dr. Jackie I said hello.
Well, I hope to see you at the convention. Although, you know, quite frankly, we're in the last push of Jonathan's campaign.
You gotta get out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Whew. All right, everybody.
Yeah, but next time we got to make sure we try hitting our brakes on time. That was like, we were like 3 minutes over.
Oh my goodness, what time am I out?
We've been getting out at the same time. We get out usually like around like 29:30.
Oh no, but see, I had already signed off with them.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. We got to make sure we hit our brakes though.
Yeah, no, because I had signed off at 28 something, but I was just.
I know you were doing your best to end the conversation, but then I know the doctor, he got the conversation going again. So
No. But once I'm done, listen to me, because once I'm done, and what I'll do is give you something.
I was listening, but the doctor, like as soon as he said that, he jumped right back in and kept the conversation.
No,
going.
but
I can't cut him off.
No, you can. Listen to me. We'll go over that just very quickly after the show. Listen to me. Just hear me. Because if I had a control here, I would have done that. Because I'm not trying to reopen the door with him. I was done. And when I'm done, that's it.
I mean, yeah, in that situation, I think probably we just end up keep trying to end the conversation. Don't entertain what he's trying to say, you know?
No, what I'm trying to do, remember, I'm having two conversations. I'm having a conversation with him on the air and with Facebook. So what I'll do is I will work to make it easier for you, but listen to me, okay? Because when I was done with him, I thanked him.
Next time you could just say it a little like louder and make sure that you wait like a second or two before.
I will be more explicit, but listen to me because I was done. I was done with him.
Yeah, no, I know you were trying to like get to the break, but again, like right after he said that, like not even like a second after he kept.
I heard that. I heard that, but listen to me because I do this all the time. Cut it off.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, this is the first time I've ran into this issue.
No. I know. Just cut it off. And I guess I'm just.
Let me get up Dr. Wolf.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you, Mark. Many Dems speak like elite wonks, but those are the ones who are on TV we're seeing. And there's, and Republicans are playing with all this yelling and screaming. All this is political theater. At the end of the day, no one is really governing in a way that helps the people. It helps corporations. They're the ones who are winning. Look at them. Thank you. They're making more money than ever before. Well, we are making less money than ever before. It's ridiculous. Dr. Wolf?
Yes, good morning.
How are you?
Guess I'm making less money than ever before, so that doesn't sound great.
Oh, what am I going to do with you?
For the early morning.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. I read so much about this emotional trauma. I said, I have been traumatized.
Probably a lot of folks have.
I have been traumatized.
Controversial, but it's interesting, right?
Oh, but I think when you think about slavery, all of these things that,
That's trauma, right?
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, you think of your family. When we think of the pain that,
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. We've been talking, of course, about the Democrats and Republicans and their push to secure the black vote, the Hispanic vote, the indigenous vote, the AA vote, the Asian American vote, Pacific Islander vote. They're doing a whole lot, and their numbers are growing. Be mindful of that. And Raphael Warnock is in the fight of his life in Georgia. And Stacey Abrams too. Wow, how can that be? Got a lot to talk about today. Something's going to kind of shift gears here, and I think it's Dr. Max Wolf, brought something to my attention that I think that we need to pay attention to. That is the emotional trauma of our forebears, of our parents. Let's just stay right there. And how that is passed on to the children. Now, we've seen this in a study in mice, but this is something that's been discussed. It's been discussed in the Bible. It's something, if you saw this movie, The Joy Luck Club, it was just magnificently pulled together because you saw these women who had escaped hardship in China. And they finally got to the United States and they were able to provide these wonderful opportunities for their daughters. And they wondered why their daughters hit these emotional walls. Like, what's going on? I mean, I told you, I gave you the best that I had. But you didn't realize that you passed on your pain too. Yeah. Pain is passed down. Sins of the father and all of that, yeah, that's passed down. So let's talk about that. The legacy of trauma. Can it be genetic? Ooh, Dr. Max Wolf. Wow. That's really, really loaded. And I think particularly coming from backgrounds like yours and mine, of course, your family, those who did survive the Holocaust survived it. Not to mention the many other generations of trauma that your family had to absorb, and mine had to absorb slavery and the Trail of Tears. I have relatives who were on that as well. And so, or should I say forebears who were on that as well. What about genetic trauma? What about the emotional trauma that could change a child's biology? What is that about? Dr. Max Wolf.
I mean, to me, what was interesting in it, and obviously there are a lot of angles and a lot of things that are interesting, but when there are major collective traumas, it seems to change who we are physically as well as how we feel. I think there's a pretty widespread understanding that major trauma changes how you process things and your sort of emotional and mental health condition. I think we're in the midst of a pretty widespread, pretty profound mental health crisis in the U.S. So it seemed like the right moment to talk about that. But this is something a bit different too, which is this notion that how our physicality, how we physically form and understand and interact with the world around ourselves bears the marks of past trauma, right? And that trauma could take a lot of forms. It could be the Middle Passage, it could be enslavement, it could be a war, it could be a famine, it could be, here's one that's obviously top of mind, it could be a disease, right? An epidemic. And so I wonder, as we start to think of a situation in which 30 to 60 million Americans are beginning to understand what long COVID looks like, if the physical long term we're starting to understand from the pandemic and the associated issues around it, the traumas,
right? So, give a guy one tool, give a guy half the world looks like a nail. So I'm sure there's a lot more you could do with it. But to me, I wonder if being poor is the trauma that's changing the bodies of poor people in the country in a way that's kind of interesting. And I wonder how that dovetails with long COVID, because the other thing that's interesting about long COVID is long COVID seems to map very closely to underserved communities, rural white communities, communities of color, lower income communities, communities with elevated unemployment and limited access to health care. So I wonder if we're physically beginning to develop along different paths by income. And that's what was interesting to me.
Well, I mean, so what does that mean? Because we know that the poor pay more. We know that your life expectancy is much shorter. I mean, in Chicago, an affluent white community that lives 30 years longer than Inglewood, which is a poor working class black community, 30 years longer. I mean, this is already demonstrable, Dr. Wolf.
But it seems to be growing, right? So, which is not to say that just a persistent inequality is fine, but of course it's not. But if you have a rapid growth in an inequity, it might demand particular attention, I guess, would be the idea here. And I think there's obviously a racial component, but there's a heavy income component too, right? So income actually is income and restricted access to health care is actually a better indicator of this stuff than race. Although there's distinct racial penalties, and obviously a lot of people of color don't just suffer the racial inequities, they also suffer economic inequities, right? Because there's a disproportionate likelihood that if you're in a community of color, that you'll have a harder time getting yourself into the higher income bracket, right? So there's obviously, no person is one set of traits, right? But it is interesting to see both of those. And then this is why it's interesting to me as well. So as an economist, but also then the policy decisions we make today are altering the genetic makeup of the kids they affect. I think that might make for a bit of a pause and a bit of a different consideration than we sometimes do, right? Because we have this sort of idea, albeit there's almost no factual basis for it anyway, but we have this idea that we like a lot, that you need to sort of give tough love to low-income people, and low-income people respond best to fear and threat, and wealthier and more...
Oh, shoot.
Let me put you back on. They don't work.
So everyone, I want you to...
It's harder to think the offspring is responsible for the decision
Mm-hmm.
of the parents, or at least that's an idea that largely went out of vogue in the Renaissance.
Well, I mean, but what do you think people will do with this information? I mean, because the upside is that you can see where people are going, but then I can see people making an argument for the inferiority, genetic inferiority of poor people, not just people of color, not just black people and brown people and Asian people and Pacific Islanders. No. There is always just looking to find the superior race, the superior person. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Yeah.
Could this lead in that direction?
It could. But the disease is looking for the superior and inferior group, not finding it, right? Finding it's a foregone conclusion once you look for it.
Yeah.
Right? So the big mistake is usually looking for who's inferior and who's superior. Once you go out on that expedition, you will always find the specimen, right? How would you get you on the specimen? It'll be your eyelash in the microscope, right? So that's a flawed undertaking. This could lead it to it. But let's say it's true. Let's say that it is true. What it would mean is that if there are inferior characteristics being bred into some people, it's a social decision, which means you could also breed them out.
Wow.
Right? If you alleviate the trauma, the inferiority goes away. It is interesting. It at least theoretically makes a lot more sense, right? If you traumatize people collectively, they will bear some response to it. However, just for the record, these are mostly what people are fighting here are elevated levels of stress, blood pressure, and blood cholesterol. That wouldn't make people inferior or unable to work as well or better than someone else. It would just mean they'd have lifelong health problems.
Yeah.
So one thing we should probably be clear on here is
we're not seeing a diminishment of mental or physical capability.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing people who are forced to live a shorter life with possible less years of being healthy.
That's right.
But that's not usually what anyone means by inferiority and superiority, right? Unless cardiac fitness in your 70s is the ultimate measure of someone's employability. It's a bit unlikely, right? So I think part of my point is maybe what you're talking about is already this. So those life expectancy issues, we know they have to do with income. We know they have to do with access to medical care, right? I mean, it has to do with something else. At least there's been pretty convincing studies in communities of color around this, which is doctors don't always engage patients of color the same way they engage white patients, even if they present with identical symptoms, right? So it may not just be, although there's obviously a lot of it this, it may not just be, less access to medicine. It may be that the way the medical establishment engages you when you present, at a hospital or a clinic or a doctor's office with a condition, say, this is what's wrong. It is not always clear that the response from the medical establishment is identical. If you're say African American versus white. Now, hopefully that changes over time with better training and greater diversity in the medical ranks. But on evidence that things are changing, so there's not a positive there too. But clearly that's part of the issue. But what if you are having these issues in part because of past trauma? Again, I'm not trying to blame anyone or sanction anyone for this. I'm just trying to say this is the facts on the ground, that we need a policy and an understanding that reflects the facts on the ground. And this is nothing here is conclusive. It's early. It hasn't been established. There's a lot of skeptics. Who knows where this goes in the end? But it's an interesting question because it means that the policies we make today have intergenerational, emotional, and physical impacts.
Let's talk about this, everybody. Renee, I know you were calling about the politics, but this is very interesting as you are a teacher, Renee, to see how these traumas impact our children, Renee. This is how the traumas that the parents experience impact the children, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Have you seen this as a teacher?
Well, it's very interesting. I haven't had a lot of sleep. School is over. But they were talking about this. Back in 2010, I introduced this topic to my 8th graders, and we looked at how a lot of Native Americans, according to the studies, the epigenetic studies, how a lot of them suffer from alcoholism because of their past traumas. And we talked then about the effects of having our people having been enslaved and what effects that may have had. But while I think all of our past traumas are passed on, not just through our genetics, but also, we've always talked about nature or nurture and people passing on, treating their children the way they know how to treat them based on how they were treated. So I don't know if everything is just inherited genetically or if learned behaviors are taught to others. And I don't know if everything is associated with epigenetics because you also have to look at the effect of racist policies that keep us down. You can't get a job not because you're not brilliant or you're not qualified, but they look at your name, it sounds black, they throw your application away. They look at zip codes. We pay higher prices for things because of the zip codes that we live in. We get less services because of the zip codes we live in. We have less medical facilities, or like that doctor in Indiana, you can be well off, go to the doctors, and they still not treat you well because they look at that skin color. Well, some of the things we suffer from are because of how we're treated and policies set forth by the government or allowed to exist by our government with companies mistreating us that give us a worse lifestyle and outcome. We can go to one hospital not far from my house, and people always talk about, that's where you go to die. You might go to another hospital with the same illness or the same medical needs, and you survive. It depends on the people who are treating you and whether they value your living, your life and stuff. You might have diabetes and stuff because if you don't have a car, there are no grocery stores in the neighborhood, in my neighborhood. So I have to drive to a grocery store if I want to get some food. And the closer grocery stores to me, the closer they are, the worse the selection of food, and that has an impact as well as epigenetics. Epigenetics might be real. I know my father was born in 1918. Sharecroppers. That's not a real great lifestyle. His grandmother, my great-grandmother, was born into slavery. She was 8 when slavery ended. So we're not that far removed from slavery. I see some great people in my family. My father, one of his sons, was a mayor of a town in Arkansas. One became a millionaire. One of my siblings was vice president of a bank in Colorado. Got a brother with a doctorate. Got all these things, but we also have depression in our family. Is that connected to epigenetics?
Well, hold on. I mean, because you hear, because not only are we speaking of this emotional trauma, stay right there, Renee, that, for example, African Americans, indigenous people in the United States have endured, and so many others. The ongoing macro and microaggressions have their impact. What impact does this kind of information, does this kind of data, I mean, where does all of this converge? I mean, what kind of policies can be affected, or just even our thinking to turn this around so that people can be optimized as opposed to diminished?
Yeah, I don't think these are easy solutions, but also I don't take Renee's point. It's a good one. There's obviously no way to do a laboratory experiment on intergenerational anything, right? So you'll never distinguish nature and nurture, probably in most anywhere. It's interesting to ask about, certainly here, right? But it is interesting because it suggests avoiding traumatizing groups of people might have an intergenerational benefit. And that's making policy misadventures that traumatize a bunch of people, you have to be able to justify a much greater reward because you're now recognizing a greater loss. Right? And it might make a little more sense on the group dynamics too. Might be able to make more sense on the group dynamics. I do want to make one point again. Just occurred to me particularly when Renee was going through her relatives on her father's side there. Lots of people with anxiety or depression in their family are massive achievers. So I want to be careful here that I'm not saying people are unsuccessful because of this, right? It's really just more about whether the past trauma shows up in physical health. So we know it shows up in mental health. And the point there is that they're diminished or that they're incapable of, can't achieve academically or at work or athletics or anything else, right? The idea is just, do our physical body bear some marker from this stuff? Again, not to say that you're incompetent or unable to achieve physically or mentally or emotionally, just that everything you do is a little harder to do. Not that you won't do it. You know what I mean? I do think it's important to draw that distinction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, so with COVID, and particularly long COVID, becoming an issue, I mean, and we're seeing that long COVID can really have a diminishes your long-term health. We're beginning to see that. But we're also seeing that so does poverty, Max. Untreated mental illness, look, I mean, but untreated everything, because women are finding lumps, and it's like, I cannot afford the treatment. I don't even want to know what I've got. I don't even want to know. How do we turn this around? Because this also, not only is this mental and physical, but to me, it's also spiritual. It's how we treat people. Traumatizing people. I can only think of the people in Buffalo. The people are afraid to go out People were afraid to send their children to school that Monday and then that Tuesday and on and on. Uvalde, you know, they're afraid to send their children back to school, or they're saying, you know what, I don't want to send my child back because that is a place of terror and death. I don't want to go back to that top supermarket in Buffalo. I don't want to go back to Columbine. And how that impacts, uh, how that impacts us. I mean, where do we go with this information? Because we've got to do something with it.
So it's not just people in Buffalo who are impacted. I mean, obviously they're particularly impacted. If your grocery store was the top grocery store in Buffalo, then obviously it's a immediate total impact. In a way it's different. But I think it's for millions of people, that's an impact, right? And for everybody dropping kids off at school and kids facing going to school and everyone who works in a school, whether they've never heard of Uvalde or been to Texas or not, this is a trauma, albeit somewhat diminished for if you're right there, but only somewhat, right? These things all have a mass traumatizing effect. I guess that's why I thought it was interesting. I guess in my head, when we figure out misadventure social policies designed to force people to go back to work when they're not ready to, or when we decide that it's just a cost of doing business for America as usual to have a couple of street shootings a week, I wonder if we're not failing each other emotionally, spiritually, and physically at that point. Because I don't know what happens to kids who have to worry about getting shot and if school is safe versus kids who don't. And in a competitive global environment, when our kids are the only kids, at least in the developed world and largely beyond that, who worry about getting killed when they go to the grocery store or go to school, I don't know if that's setting us up for success.
Droll, dry humor you do have, but gallows humor, and you weren't trying to be funny. I mean, the fact is, this is not a map toward prosperity. This is not setting us up for success. Dr. Max Wolf, I want to thank you for this. I've got about a minute here. What about the volatility of the stock market? Should we be worried about our 401ks? What is going on? And the Fed, I mean, there's so much stuff, other stuff I wanted to ask you today. Last minute belongs to you.
Yes. Look, I don't think we're going to see a cessation of the stock market volatility either because we're trying to figure out where the economy is going. That picture doesn't look altogether pretty for me. I think the inflation story is a bit oversold because it's a re-election strategy or election strategy for the Republican Party. My guess is the inflation has largely topped, but people who want these prices to come back down may be waiting longer than won't be alive. These prices are pretty sticky on the way down. So I think prices stay elevated. I think the big pop-up in prices is probably over. I think the stock market continues to struggle because it's still pretty expensive. And eventually a weaker macroeconomy and possible recession don't bode well for a still fairly expensive equity market, although it's come down a lot. Probably a lot of volatility and a lot of sideways while people figure out what the next act looks like for big companies. There's still a big waiting game around COVID and still a big waiting game around Russia-Ukraine issues. So a lot of uncertainty here, and obviously the Federal Reserve stepped in under heavy pressure to curb inflation, which everybody wants, and somehow no one told the American public that they're about to pay more for their credit card balances, their houses are worth a little bit less, and their car payments will be a little bit higher, all in the effort of trying to slow the price increase of food. I'm not sure that's a bargain that people would be so excited about if they understood how it works.
Everybody think about it. We're going to continue asking more questions. We have to get you back before next Thursday to talk about this. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow, Lord willing, on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless everybody. Take care and be good to yourselves and to each other. Love you much. Thank you, Coach May. Thank you, Dr. Wolf. All right, hon. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wolf.
Thank you. Take care.
Oh, hey, you too. I'll call you back. Huh? What you say?
If you look at the equity market, the futures are quite negative, which usually means the market will gap downward. It doesn't tell you where it'll be later today or before, but looks like a pretty rocky opening.
Well, I just know that people are very, very, very anxious out here. Very anxious. And I'd like you to come back on before next Thursday and help us to make some sense of this. Hmm?
Anxious about what?
Well, anxious about what this means for their 401ks. You know, very, very basic needs, you know, because most of us, we're not economists, we don't know. But their 401ks, you know, wow, my mortgage is costing more. Wow, when is inflation going to, when is this going to peak? I can't afford to drive my car. I can't take my kids to school. I can't go to the grocery store. I can't even go to work. And where I live, the bus doesn't run regularly, you know, because, you know, Chicago functionally, in terms of, I mean, great public transportation ends about 50 or 60 blocks before the city ends, right? So there's a lot going on, you know?
Transportation fuel has become this big issue for people financially because the price of gas has gone up so much.
Yeah.
Well, you pay, on average, you're probably paying between $700 and $1,000 a year more than you were a year ago or so. That's not right.
That's a lot of,
Right for that.
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, you know.
Reserve rate of interest rate is 6% down. Just, you know, people don't tell you that because they're more after of interest, especially I'm more worried about inflation usually.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the roads well. But if they push interest rates down 75 basis points, but the 3/4% did yesterday. Keep in mind that, you know, credit card interest rates adjust immediately upward. That's not a payment. So the average might have about $6,000 or $7,000 balance their credit card. Well, about $5,000 a year. Right? Increase in cost. And then there's also generally, it's a little more complex, but generally an interest rate rise that pushes down the value of the house. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when people buy houses, about 90+%, 99% of homes are bought on a mortgage. And then when you have to pay interest, the less house you can afford to buy, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a payment. And so the interest, until all things being equal, interest rate increase sort of balances house price reduction, and then depending on, and most people have fixed rate mortgages, so they're not going to be as immediately affected as they might be in certain things, right? Where they'll just be hit right away. But when the car payments, because also most people have car payments, even if their cars now are, you know, older, people have car payments on them because they may have bought them on credit that they were used, or they may have bought them on credit new, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, but still be paying off the note in the car. Those don't tend to float, they tend to be fixed too. All of them are floating. And so, we're pretty much within 30 days of the rate.
It sure would be helpful.
Versus when you see these conservatives screaming and yelling about inflation, they only tell you half the story, right? So they're screaming about inflation, what they're doing is saying, let's enter a recession. The prices will go up. And that's the usual chorus from people in general public who don't even understand that that's what they're calling for. Because they're going to be really angry with this recession.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect if they're going to run against Joe Biden and company there. So the big chance of the more inflation and recession there is, the more likely you are to see their confidence because the party out of power. That probably looks reasonable. Sure, like win-lose basis. But for the general public, not sure, right? Also, I think the Republican Party might be more interested in talking about inflation right now than those hearings on January 6th.
I think you're right.
I'm not sure that.
Methinks they don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, and that's become sort of, I think a lot of people think it's a non-issue because the other side of those debates are primarily now, right? But I think it's actually one of those things that people are pretty sure is the end story, but they don't actually know the story. Right, unless you pay really close attention now. I do agree that most people's minds probably would be getting too much. Either kind of support the president's actions more or less on a loyalty basis, or they're skeptical and critical because they're not a fan. That's probably true, but on the other hand, you know, given the severity of the accusation, looks pretty damning.
everything's not true, but it's not altogether good time.
Wow. This is a lot. You know, I just have, you know, I mean,
I'm glad that you were able to fundraise to the whole thing. Obviously, when there's no fundraising perspective.
well, I don't know.
You're not happy that we drained the swamp.
Oh, so don't even get me started with that. Don't get me started with that. Don't get me started with that.